Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and this morning, on this sunny day outside in the summer, I'm looking at a book which has come to us from Wildy, Simmonds and Hill. It's an important book, and I think one that will be of general applicability to a wide range of readers. The book is called Planning Law, a Practitioner's Handbook, and it's been written by William Webster. And I wrote the main review having discussed the book with my wife Elizabeth, because we write these jointly together. We've given it a title, Superb Planning Advice for the Professional and the Unrepresented Involved in Planning Issues. That's what you've got with this book. It's a big book, but it's in one handy volume. Let's have a look at it. Here it is. It's a hardback. There it is. There's the front. There's the side. And then the back. You can see from the back quite a lot of detail. You probably can't make too much of it out because of the colours and so forth. The back of the book, it runs to quite a large number of pages. 666, oh, unlucky that number. It's more than that. It's about 700 pages, in fact, in total, because of when you include all the stuff at the front. The index is by page numbering, but there's quite a substantial index. References are to be by page numbers, it says there, so you should be able to find things that you're looking for. This book, as I said, is relevant, I think, to both practitioners and to anybody involved or having a problem with planning law, because I think it's a very well written book which explains everything to a novice. People, not so much just like me who do a little bit of this, but people who don't know anything at all. There's the blurb from Wilders, then you see the contents section running all the way through. There are a lot of chapters in this particular book, and it comes to the end. The final chapter is chapter 28, Gypsies and Travellers. So it covers a wide range, and in fact at the back there's obviously the index. Then there's a foreword, which is always worth reading, from Lord Justice Lindblom, dated January 2019. Very kind comments made by the senior judge there. Then there's a preface which sets out where we are with the book, dated the 1st of Jan 2019. List of abbreviations, extremely helpful. And of course there are a lot of abbreviations in planning. Then you've got the case law, lots of interesting cases of course there. And then after the case law you've got the statutes. Then after the statutes you've then got statutory instruments, and then after that, because there's a lot to it, one of the tables of EU and international material. We're getting this regularly now in all publications. Then there's other material. That other material talks about circulars in particular, which could be relevant depending on what the issue is. Then you've got chapter 1, administration of planning law. Paragraph numbering at the side, as you can see, and footnoting. So it's a standard format. And of course planning law is a very important area of law. It affects a lot of people. And it's also, you can see the middle of the book there, chapter 7, it also is highly emotive. Now I'm going to declare an interest, having done a few planning cases and having been twice members of different planning committees and having chaired planning committees myself. I therefore have some experience as a locally elected councillor as to what the problems are, because you're dealing directly with the public, with constituents, and you're dealing with money, and you're dealing with, quite often, a totally unfamiliar approach by ordinary members of the public, constituents, about the power which a local authority actually has. And of course these issues can be of very great concern to many people. So that's why I think this book has a special place for everybody. I'd like to thank Wildy, Simmonds and Hill very much, and Andrew Riddick, for producing this work, because it's books like this that do make our lives a great deal easier. So what do I say about the book in this relatively short review? Sadly, the problem with a planning application is much more complex, costly and irritating than many people realise. Difficulties such as the current limited availability of straightforward readable material, which does not confuse either applicants or objectors to a planning permission, abound. And that's why I think this book offers actually good guidance prior to needing to get into a very, very detailed area with the huge encyclopedic planning law, loose leaf versions and everything else. But this book is a first stop, and I do think it will set the record straight for many people. So therefore step forward Wildy's, Simmonds and Hill, who spotted a gap in the market and have launched this excellent new practitioner work from William Webster, which is entitled Planning Law, with the subtitle of Practitioner's Handbook. So the author states, quote, "Keeping pace with planning law is no easy matter." Absolutely. He continues saying that the mass of primary and secondary legislation in this field, allied to local and national policy and guidance, make this the most intensively regulated area of the law. He's absolutely right on that. What we have here then is a title which is a comprehensive practitioner's handbook covering the widest possible range of planning topics in one single, rather large, volume of over 600 pages. It's also, of course, a hardback too, but I think the quality of the paper is nice as well. And I think that's always important, because sometimes it's very thin, very flimsy, but it's nice. And that actually makes it easier to read, believe it or not. A lot of people don't agree with that, but I think it does. It has been written then by William Webster for planning practitioners in the private and public sectors. And it's a title which combines a readily accessible narrative with a substantial body of footnotes for those looking for more detail when it comes to case law and statutory materials. So as I say, don't assume that this is the be-all and the end-all of the subject matter, because there are lots of other books around, but this particular one I think is a very good starter, and I think it will help anybody who's suddenly realises they may have a planning problem they need to deal with. Webster's Planning Law then gives the busy planning professional answers on a whole range of problems as a first-stop shop, if you like, which will often rise in the day-to-day practice that you might have. Questions you probably think you know the answers to, but you will find it helpful to look up just for clarity. It's always important to do that. I often find that there's no point in trying to bluff one's way through anything. If you don't know, look it up, because actually they even may be sometimes wrong in the books themselves, but generally they aren't, and that is actually the fount of knowledge, if you like. We consider then that the one advantage for the planner at all levels lies with the fact that you've got a single up-to-date reference work here covering a broad range of topics which might otherwise only be found in several specialist and rather lengthy texts, or of course as I say the loose leaf. In addition, the work contains useful commentaries on village greens, assets of community value, public rights of way, and gypsies and travellers, which is the final chapter, all of which do impact on the realisation of land for planning purposes. And we're of the view that the inclusion of these topics, I think, will be of special value to planning practitioners themselves, as people obviously in the local authorities and the professionals, and all people in the public sector involved who are looking for up-to-date guidance in these fields. And I think the final word must come from Lord Justice Lindblom in his foreword, when he writes in the following terms. He says, "In an area of the law that is constantly changing and constantly growing in complexity, a new textbook," just notice a little mistake there, "a new textbook will always be welcome. The more so if it's a thorough, reliable and insightful one." And this is undoubtedly the case here. He concludes that practitioners looking for answers to the questions they meet in advising clients on the law will find the text enlightening. That's his passing comment at the end. Thank you. It certainly is, and we couldn't put it better ourselves. The date of publication of the hardback edition is the 22nd of February 2019. Let's just have one last look at it. There it is again, hardback there, planning, and then it's got a little note about Lord Justice Lindblom's comments in the foreword. Just opening it in the middle. Appeals and review of planning decisions. That's an area where we do get involved. The decision's made, and then the people start saying, "I don't like that decision, I want to change it." So what you've got is a lot of information here. You've got some interesting case law as well. These are actually cases on appeal that are listed, which I think are quite helpful. I'm pleased to say that none of the cases I've done are in here. Good job too, because the law's been changed since. There we go. Now you can see again the actual footnoting there, and you can see the paragraph numbering, so you should be able to find things. Remember, of course, the index is by page numbering. Well, thank you very much to William, and thank you very much also to Wildy, Simmonds and Hill, for publishing this work. You do make our lives easier, as I've regularly said. I'm grateful because we only review books which we think will be of importance to people who are looking for something specific, which may help them with what problem they've got and find a solution. Thank you to all anyway. Bye-bye.